In this video, we're going to be creating actually a storage manipulator. So what does storage manipulator do? It will actually take care of the databases which we're going to be using and handling out all of the information of friends, messages, and all these statuses that whether user is online, offline, how many messages have been passed, and as well as how many friends are in the list and which is online. All these informations should be kept in a database. For that, we're going to have to create a database, and for that a storage manipulator is needed. So we're going to be keeping all these information in a storage manipulator. So let's get started. I'm going to click on the package and create a new class that will be actually a storage manipulator, and I'm just going to finish. And that's it. Now we have a storage manipulator, and here we're going to be creating the database. Here first I'm going to create actually two variables that would be one for the database name and one for the version of database. So public static final string database name is equal to, and that will be like, I'm going to give it a name like Android chatter, and that would be .db. So this will be our database name, and public static final string int database version, that should be actually 1, and I'm gonna do it. That's it. And I'm going to create a next few variables like the table name in the database, and then the receiver underside, and then I'm going to evaluate them, and plus ID. So I'm going to use public static final string underscore ID is equal to, and ID. That's it. Public static final string table name message equal to table message. That's it. Public static final string message receiver. That's it. And public static final string message sender is equal to sender. So actually this is for the index of the table database. I assume that you would be familiar with the databases. When we are dealing with database, we need to provide an index ID so that we can just sequentially store our data, and that is actually the table name and the message receiver and sender, who is the message receiver and who is the sender. Now I'm just gonna hit enter. Now I'll paste on some code in here for the time savage and explain it one by one. Now as you can see that I've pasted some code in here in which that is a table message create. So in here I created a table with the name of message table name message, and here is you can see that create table with the name of table name message, and I've already created a table name message variable in here. And then what I have done in here, I provided the ID which I've previously created in here, and then integer primary key auto increment. I assume that you would be already familiar with this concept because this is all databases, because we are actually providing it a primary key as it is our primary key instinct, and it is actually an integer. The ID is actually an integer like 1 2 3 4, so we're going to be actually storing it in a sequential way. It is not actually a foreign key, it's a primary key. And auto increment, it will be automatically incremented by itself. And message receiver is actually a varchar of 25 length, and as well as the sender. So it is actually all similar databases and nothing else new in that case. Now I'm just gonna provide a code for dropping the table, that when a user wants to drop the table, for example he or she deletes the friends list or the messages or anything like that, so in that case the table will be dropped off. So I'm going to create another variable static public static final string table message drop. So I'm going to use drop table if exist, and then I'm going to pass on a message of that table we have already created in here. I'm gonna use like table name message. So that's it. Now we're gonna drop this table if it exists, and I've stored it in a string variable, as you can see in here. I'm gonna press enter. Now when we begin to execute our database, what would happen? We would provide that message into the section. So for that purpose, I'm gonna create public, or you can say that on create, and it's actually providing us the on create context menu listener, but we don't want it. But I'm gonna make it public void on create, and then I'm gonna pass out the SQLite up. But here will be too many contradictions because we haven't actually extended and inherited the SQLite or manipulator or open helper. So for that purpose, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to extend it. Extends SQLite open helper. So SQLite open helper is very important while we are dealing with SQLite database. It actually allows us to open the database and all these things. So I'm just going to provide a constructor for the SQLite storage manipulator like that, and save it, and then get back to on create method. I'm just going to finish it, and then I'm going to write on create, and that's it. Now we have the database. Now I'm going to execute the database by db.exesql, and I'm going to pass actually the query, this table message create query. So I'm just going to pass in here like this, and I'm just going to save it. And that's what we have now, is actually we have actually executed the table message created in here. Now the next thing, when the user from the both devices begin to chat with each other, then we're going to have to actually save that data, like the messages data and the sender and receiver's data, into a database, and we need to insert it into the database. So for that purpose, I'm going to create public void insert, and then I'm going to pass string sender, string receiver, and string message. So who is the sender, receiver, and plus message? We're going to insert these three parameters in here, and then I'm going to create long row ID. Long row ID would be specifying us that at which row you're going to insert the sender, receiver, and message area section. I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to provide a try-catch block, because whenever you are dealing with databases, you're going to have to put it in a try-catch block, because input-output operations always give errors at some time. So I'm going to provide it in a try-catch block, and then create SQLite database, and that would be db is equal to get writable database. So get writable database would allow us to open the database and then insert something into that. I'm going to click enter. Now I'm going to use content values, and values is equal to new content values. Content values actually allows us to insert and put something into the database, and as well as manipulate the data and elements of the database in SQLite. So I'm going to place it, save it. Now I'm going to put the message and receiver queries inside the content values of the database. So content values dot put, and the string key would be like I'm gonna scroll to the up section, and here we have a message receiver plus message sender. So I'm gonna put out this string key, but I'm gonna have to add another one, is public static final string message underscore message is equal to message. That's it. Now I'm going to add it inside this string key value. So I'm going to use message receiver, and that is message receiver, and then I'm going to provide receiver. That's it. And now I'm going to use content values dot put message sender, and then I'm going to provide sender. That's it. And the last one is actually content values dot put, and it will be like message, and the message will be actually providing it, and that's it. And now I'm going to insert all these elements with the help of a row ID inside the database. So I'm going to use row ID is equal to db dot insert, and that would be a table. So I'm going to use a table message name message, and the null column index will be a null, and values should be put and content values. So that